October 1937. A farm wife in western Kansas descends rough-hewn wooden steps cut straight into the earth. The temperature drops 10 degrees in 6 feet. The smell of damp clay, cold apples, and old newspaper ink. She reaches into a crate packed with sand and pulls out a carrot planted in August. It snaps clean between her fingers. No refrigerator in this house. No electricity until 1942. The food is perfect. These are 10 root cellar secrets that kept American families fed through winters that would bankrupt a modern household. Every one of them worked. Most have been erased from living memory. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. By 1960, the root cellar was rebranded as Primitive. Weekly grocery trips became the American standard. A family that once stored 8 months of produce underground for nothing now spends over $1,000 a month on groceries. They depend on a machine that costs $2,000 and an electric grid that fails every time the weather turns. The cellar never failed. It was replaced by people who needed you to keep buying. Number 10. Sand storage for root vegetables. Families buried carrots, beets, parsnips, and turnips in wooden crates of damp sand. They stayed crisp for 5 to 6 months without refrigeration. Clean sand, dampened but never soaking. A layer of sand, then vegetables never touching. A February carrot that snapped like it came from the garden an hour ago. No plastic bags, no crisper drawer. 25 cents of sand preserved an entire autumn harvest. A woman walked down those steps in winter and came back up with dinner in her hands. That sand did what a $2,000 refrigerator does today. The average American family spends over $170 a month on produce. Most spoils within a week. That sand held a carrot for 6 months. But sand only works if the air cooperates. Controlling that air required engineering so simple it should not work. Number 9. The two-pipe ventilation system. 2 pipes. One enters low near the floor, the other exits high near the ceiling. Together they created constant air circulation that held the cellar between 32 and 40 degrees without a single watt of electricity. One pipe low on the north wall, one high on the south side. Cold air sinks through the low pipe, warm air rises and exits through the high one. No thermostat, no fan, no motor. $1's worth of pipe created a temperature-stable room that rivaled a modern wine cooler. A man built this once. It ran for the rest of his life and his children's lives after him. Nobody serviced it. Nobody sent a bill. The laws of physics do not expire. Today, the average household pays over $150 a month for electricity. Those 2 pipes replaced the refrigerator and chest freezer for $1. That ventilation kept everything stable, but certain vegetables needed more than stable air. They needed to be tricked into believing they were still alive. Number 8. Cabbage storage, roots and all. Families pulled cabbage heads from the garden with the entire root system intact. They hung them upside down from cellar rafters or pushed them root first into the dirt floor. Fresh cabbage in February. Root balls shaken loose but never washed. Hung by butcher's twine from the joists or pushed into damp earth where they drew moisture through winter. The plant believed it was still in the garden. Fresh slaw in March from a head pulled in October. The cabbage did not know it had been harvested. The cellar fooled it into staying alive. That is not folk wisdom, that is biology, understood by people who never heard the word. Today, a head of cabbage costs $3. In 1945, it cost 8 cents. Stored with roots intact, that cabbage fed a family for 2 months. Cabbage hung from the ceiling. But the fruit on the shelves required a different kind of patience entirely. Number 7. Apple wrapping in newspaper. Each apple was individually wrapped in newspaper and placed on wooden shelves without touching its neighbor. They lasted until April. Newspaper torn into 6-inch squares. Each apple was cradled in paper, the stem end twisted closed. Rows on pine shelves 3 inches apart. They were never stacked and never touching. The newsprint trapped ripening gas, so one rotting apple could not take the others down. A bushel cost $1 in 1940. That dollar fed a family with fruit through the winter. A child was sent downstairs in February for 2 apples, unwrapping them like small gifts. That was dessert. The produce supply chain loses 30 to 40% of its harvest to spoilage. A farm wife in 1938 lost nothing. She wrapped each one in newspaper and gave it room to breathe. Apples were kept on shelves. Cabbages hung from rafters, but some things needed to hang differently. The way they were hung was precision engineering, disguised as kitchen craft. Number 6. Onion and garlic braiding. Onions and garlic were braided by their dried stems into ropes and hung from cellar joists. They lasted 6 to 8 months without a single one going soft. Stems were left long at harvest. They dried for 1 week in the September sun until the necks turned papery. 3 bulbs started the braid, and each new one locked in by the twist above it. They were hung from a nail on the joist, with air circulating around every surface. 10 minutes of braiding preserved 6 months of flavor. They looked beautiful hanging there. But beauty was not the point. Every twist exists because airflow demanded it. Form followed survival. Right now, thousands of young homesteaders are posting videos learning to braid onions. They call it a lost art. Their great-grandmothers called it Tuesday. Here is something worth noticing about every item so far. Not one requires plastic. Not one needs electricity. Every container was reused until it disintegrated. Then it became compost or kindling. These families were not trying to be sustainable. They had never heard the word. They were trying to eat in February. But it turns out that survival and sustainability were always the same thing. The distance between those two ideas was manufactured later by people who profited from the separation. Number 5. The straw clamp for potatoes. Families with no cellar built outdoor earth mounds called clamps. Hundreds of pounds of potatoes kept through winter in nothing but straw and dirt. They chose a well-drained patch of ground. Straw was laid like a mattress. Potatoes were heaped in a pyramid. More straw was packed tight than 6 inches of earth was tamped smooth. A twist of straw at the peak provided ventilation. A drainage ditch ran around the perimeter. Total cost, nothing. 500 pounds were held at 35 degrees by the earth's own heat. A man with no cellar, no money, and no electricity still fed his family potatoes through winter. He needed only a spade, straw, and the knowledge his father handed him without writing a word down. Today, potatoes cost $4 for a 5-pound bag. 500 pounds would cost $400. A farmer stored that amount for nothing in dirt and straw. The clamp kept potatoes frozen in time. But squash required the opposite. It needed warmth and air. Number 4. Squash curing and shelf storage. Butternut, corn, and Hubbard squash were cured in direct sun for 10 to 14 days after harvest, then placed on wooden shelves with airspace on all sides. They lasted until April without processing. They were harvested after the first frost. Stems were cut 2 inches long and never broken by hand. 2 weeks of sun hardened the rind into armor. The squash were placed on shelves 3 inches apart and never stacked. A blue Hubbard cut open in February had flesh still dense and orange as the day it was picked. 1 seed packet grew 200 pounds of food that required no canning or freezing. A single squash fed a family of 4 for 3 meals. A dozen on a shelf provided a month of eating. No freezer, no vacuum sealer, just sunlight and patience. Every item in that cellar succeeded or failed based on one thing most people have paved over without a second thought. Number 3. The earthen floor. Root cellars were rarely built with concrete floors. The bare, packed dirt was the humidity system. It held moisture between 85 and 95% naturally. That is the exact range that keeps produce alive and firm. The hard packed earth was swept with a broom. In dry spells, water was poured on the floor, and humidity corrected within the hour. In wet springs, pea gravel was raked over the surface. That floor was a living membrane between the food and the water table, breathing, adjusting, responding without intervention. Every modern guide warns against bare earth floors. They recommend concrete and vapor barriers, and everyone produces a cellar that does not work. The pioneers knew what the manuals forgot. The dirt was not the problem. The dirt was the engine. Seal it off, and you kill the system. The floor gave moisture, the walls held cold, the pipes moved air. But none of it matters if a family puts the wrong food in the wrong place. Number 2. Egg preservation in water glass. Fresh, unwashed eggs were submerged in a sodium silicate solution in a stoneware crock. They stayed edible for 8 to 9 months without refrigeration. A 5-gallon crock. 1 pint of sodium silicate, 20 cents at the pharmacy. Mixed into 10 parts cooled water. Eggs gathered each morning, never washed. The natural bloom left intact. Eggs slid beneath the surface, layer after layer, from April through August. Come December, an egg laid the previous May. The white held firm, the yolk stood tall, 9 months without refrigeration. A family with 12 hens and a crock never bought an egg from anyone, not in winter, not in a blizzard. 5 gallons of total independence, 20 cents a year. Right now, a dozen eggs costs over $4. The egg shortage has been national news since 2022. A woman in 1940 with a henhouse and water glass never experienced an egg shortage in her life. Every one of these methods shares something no modern solution offers. They required a person to pay attention, to check the sand's moisture, to feel there were air in the stairwell. That was not a burden. That was a relationship. With your own labor and the food it produced, we traded that relationship for convenience, and then spent decades wondering why feeding a family feels like a bill instead of a craft. Number 1. The temperature zone map. Every properly managed root cellar was organized into climate zones. Coldest near the floor, warmest near the ceiling, driest near the ventilation pipe, dampest near the walls. 1 room, 5 environments, no moving parts. Floor level 32 degrees. Root vegetables in sand crates, cabbages in dirt. Middle shelves 38 degrees. Wrapped apples, fermenting sauerkraut. Upper shelves 45 degrees. Cured squash, dried herbs. Near the exhaust pipe, onion braids and garlic ropes. Farthest corner, celery in buckets of water. 8 feet by 10 feet. A woman memorized this map the way a librarian knows the shelves. That room replaced every appliance in a modern kitchen. A family of 6 fed from September through May on what it held. Wasted nothing. The knowledge did not come from a book. It was learned beside a woman who already knew. Daughter beside mother. The average American family spends $12,000 a year on groceries and throws away 1/3. A pioneer family spent nothing from September to April and wasted nothing. These women did not call it food preservation. They did not call it sustainability or self-sufficiency or meal prep. They called it getting ready for winter. And every September, without ceremony, they walked down those steps and did it again. If you want forgotten wisdom from the Wild West, the next video is waiting for you right now.